So the article about and like whatever, stocks go up and down.
Yeah,
I'm not an expert in that stuff. The one thing I'll say though is that like CNBC wrote an article about Sony's stock price taking a hit because of and they were linking it to the Fortnite stuff.
Yeah.
The account linking stuff. Like, oh, people are getting pissed off at Sony about this stuff. Like they are burning goodwill. Like this is bad. And then
I thought they were going to cave. I thought this was finally going to be the moment. When it got bad enough.
Actually think this will have been the moment in
retrospect.
retrospect.
We're just not there yet.
That gets this going. Yeah, when they're writing about your stock price and connecting it to this business policy that makes less sense.
Especially when when you drill down on this whole thing, it's kind of obscure for people in the mainstream business press to care about how accounts are linked in a free-to-play game.
That's how big Fortnite is.
But yeah, totally.
Also, like that's why that's a story, is because of how huge Fortnite is. And that's the link they drew. You could maybe argue that is not true or something, but I think the idea that a mainstream reporter could try to draw that connection at all and write about it and post it to CNBC is enough to where you're like, all right, this is actually a fucking real problem.
That's crazy.
Perception is reality, all that sort of stuff. Like that. That's
but also, I think reality is reality in this case. Like that policy is bullshit.
It's
like crazy.
When you can have PC players play with iPhone players, and not PS4,
right?
But I mean, like even up to the point of like X platform can't play X platform, can't play with Y platform. Like it sucks, but I get it. But once you're literally just locking out people from even playing on other platforms, irrespective of who you play with,
right?
Sure,
especially in a case where, yes, no, exactly what you said. Sorry, like the idea, because I ran into this on the Xbox like a couple of weeks ago. And had to look it up and was like, that seems like some bullshit.
Did I understand correctly that it was because of down to the wording of the error message that it wasn't clear on Xbox?
Right. The error message on the Xbox was a little like you can't play this game on this platform, but it didn't really get into why or anything like that. There was no further explanation. And so you look it up and you're like, oh, because your Epic account has been linked to a PS4 profile, you cannot. And so I went onto the Epic site and linked my Epic account, which was already linked to my PSN account, to my Xbox account, which is, whatever. I do that on EA, like 2K, all the other companies that have weird services for like...
Even Destiny has it.
Yeah, like, hey, let us fucking email you about shit. Whatever it is. I just go link it all up, because why wouldn't you? But because I had done that, and because I had played Fortnite on the PS4 before... launching it on an Xbox, you get to the screen, and you hit A to log in, and it goes through that process and then rejects you and says like, hey, basically like you can't do this, and is very ambiguous on Xbox. So I looked it up and determined what it was, and was like, that seems like some bullshit. And then it came out on Switch.
Yeah, that one was very direct.
The error message flat out says, you have played this on another platform that.
Yeah,
and then there's like a line that's like, "Do not contact Epic support. We cannot solve this issue."
Right. Yeah. And then it says like, their workaround, or whatever workaround, like their stated solution is create a second Epic account.
Buy all that stuff again.
What are you going to buy your cosmetics all over again and all? Like, fuck no. So that's the point where it's just like, this is fucking ridiculous. Even if they said like, hey, we don't want people playing together, this cannot last, this whole process.
I mean, I guess the business explanation is they don't want people using items they paid a different company to acquire, right?
I guess.
Like if they bought those items on the PC or on the Switch or whatever, they gave Nintendo the cut of those cosmetics and not Sony.
Or if they bought it on PC, then Epic got all of it,
right. But like Sony, like they don't want people using microtransacted, if that's a word, items.
Yeah,
sure. that they didn't get a cut of.
But I think that's something that we're past now,
right?
Like, because that's something that like Apple doesn't give a shit if you bought some stuff somewhere else. They just don't want you to use their platform to bypass. Like you can't create a separate store on an Apple device, like Amazon had for a while, and all the other stuff that goes around Apple getting its 30% or whatever it is.
If this policy is even like a bridge too far for Apple.
Yeah, that's like even Apple allows that stuff. Like right now, the test flight builds of the Steam app for iOS have stripped out the ability to buy games, and and now it says like, go to your PC to buy this game, which is clearly they're thinking if they rip out the store from the app that they'll be able to.
If you just buy the game on a PC, you can then play it on that Steam app.
That's the idea. I mean, Apple hasn't approved it, but that's the idea.
Theoretically,
that's how the Amazon Kindle app worked. I mean, that's how the community apps built on our platform have worked. We don't allow, and some platform holders on some set-top box devices where you might have to go through workarounds to get the app working, maybe have some things to say about that.
Sure.
But point being, like, this is I think will be the thing that gets this moving. But it's a matter of like where it moves to. Like, it seems like the baseline solution would be like, hey, just let the accounts fucking work.
Right.
And, if you have to create a separate progression for other platforms, but I can see why Epic would be like, no, because the minute you start creating a separate progression, when this wall falls, then they're like, oh, well, and it's already a mess. When this wall falls, some people have 2 Epic accounts that maybe they have spent money on.
Right.
And what do you do then?
Right. Like now we have to build the infrastructure to merge accounts or something. Like, fucking come on.
Or they're keeping 2 separate accounts on the back end. Like, hey, here's the one that we can show when you're playing on PlayStation. Right. Here's the one we can show when you're playing on Xbox. But then what do they show when you're on PC? And what do they show when you're on these other open platforms, iOS? We're literally calling iOS an open fucking platform compared to what Sony is doing with this stuff. And so, this is something that I think, has only made real sense over the last over the last year even. It's the sort of stuff like when it was coming up a couple years back, I forget, we had Adam in and there was something in the news around that time about cross-platform play.
Rocket League?
Maybe it was Rocket League at the time. Yeah.
Rocket League, and then PUBG was the first one that I started really hearing people hammer at home about.
With just like PC and Xbox, you mean? Yeah, I guess. Like that, yeah. But that's a case where you could say, like, hey, competitively, this doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Controls and frame rate.
Right.
Yeah.
But when you're literally talking about, like, hey, they've done all the controls and frame rate stuff and split that out across platforms in Fortnite, it really is just let me have the cosmetics and allow me to launch the fucking game.
Yes.
Like, the crossplay aspect of it is messier, and I get, like, why that is, like, almost... It's an attached conversation, but not the same conversation. It's adjacent.
Yeah.
But the idea that this is where we're at with this stuff, like, this is where it starts to move, I think, because looking at that situation with a game like Fortnite that is the biggest game in the world right now, you just look at it and go like, yeah, and Sony's just fucking up.
And that statement they put out did not do them any favors, where they just implicitly bragged about how many PS4s they've sold.
Yeah, like,
it's like, hey, there are 80 million people that you could be playing Fortnite with on the PS4.
Check this out, fuck off. Yeah, like, that's bullshit.
I have noticed a decrease in the number of times my Epic account is been tried to be hacked over the past few days.
Someone tried to create a new Epic account with one of my email addresses the other day, though, so I did get that. And they now have 2-factor.
Oh,
so that's another option, I guess. I don't know. Like, I don't even really care about Fortnite. Like, other than it's a huge thing and that makes it interesting. But like the actual, like, oh, I can't play Fortnite on Switch. Like, I don't really care.
I'm with you. I wasn't going to play it to begin with, but it sucks for people who want to.
It's bad business.
Yeah. Like, for the way I enjoy Fortnite, which is play 2 to 3 rounds and then, like, not touch it again for a week. The Switch seemed like one of the platforms where maybe I would enjoy that. Pick it up, sit on the couch, play a couple rounds. And the fact that I can't even do that.
It's only served that purpose for me. Like, since I got back from E3, just want to clock in a couple of rounds and, like, oh, hey, just pop it in the Switch and then switch to something else.
Yeah.
It feels extra tone deaf in a time when it seems like a lot of big corporations are waking up to the fact that treating your customers well is just good for business.
Right. Yeah.
Like however cynically they got to that position, that they got there is still
exactly. That's the thing too.
Like, I feel like I think Phil Spencer said to you something about, like, this. I don't know why this stuck out to me. He was talking about, like, telling developers that they can use Visual Studio to develop PS4 games or something along those lines. Like,
which of course,
it's just like, hey, like, however you use our products in whatever way we can do business with you is fine.
Like, Microsoft is a large company with a lot of different tendrils. Like,
like, it just feels like the era of, like, trying to control every piece of the pie maybe is.
And I think that's the interesting thing about the way Microsoft positioned all its stuff. And you're right to say, like, oh, however cynically maybe they got there and stuff. Like, it's right. It's I think it's appropriate to be skeptical of, a company's motivations and all this other stuff. But at the end of the day, Microsoft has stated its position on gaming, one way or the other. They got it out there. You can sit there and say, like, well, of course they're saying that because they're behind, or you can take it at face value. Either way, it doesn't really matter, because they're pushing in that direction one way or the other.
Sure.
and they're pushing in this like more device agnostic sort of thing. And that ties into, you know, if you look at this 10 years down the line or whatever, and you start talking about the streaming stuff and all that, like that's something that every publisher is going to be interested in, because right now they're all making games that are constrained by the install base of a console or consoles. And so,
which are still expensive to develop and manufacture and buy.
You know, if they can say like, hey, you know, maybe it's not going to be as sharp of an experience if you're streaming it or whatever and playing it on your phone, but if we can get those customers too, like that's great
on a device that people already have.
Yeah, for a Ubisoft, for an EA, like whoever. Like every publisher is going to look at that and go like, yeah, if we could suddenly sell our games to, or sell a service that allows people to play our games to the, you know, whatever it is, hundreds of millions of people that own phones that might not own a console, like of course they're going to be like, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
So from that angle, I think, you know, you look at what Microsoft is saying about that sort of stuff, and every bit of their story ties back into that. Again, you know, you can take the cynical approach and be like, you know, hey, they don't have a lot of stuff to show for themselves. That's why they're out there announcing new first-party studios and leaning really heavily on third-party games in their press conference. Either way, they showed a lot of games that I'm interested in playing. Will I play them all on Xbox?
Yeah.
Maybe, maybe not.
Probably not.
Probably not.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of them are coming to PC. I already bought a copy of Windows, so they got me there, I guess. Whatever. But it's...
Sucker.
You look at that, you look at the adaptive controller stuff, you know, it's big and small. All of that stuff starts to fit together, and you look at it and go like, yeah, no, this is a future of gaming that I can appreciate.
Like a rosier future than you expected.
Right.
Kind of.
Yeah. And you know, for as much as I get like paranoid and weird about the streaming stuff, because like I like games to feel good.
Yeah.
I think it's worth looking into for sure. And I get why, you know, you'd have someone like EA out there in their press conference talking about like, hey, you know, we're looking at this premier tier access to get our games, and you know, hey, here's like shots of people playing stuff on a phone and all that sort of stuff. Like, of course, because at the end of the day, consoles are still pretty expensive. I mean, so are phones, but people buy phones because they're multi-use devices, and they're like, well, I have to have one of these to function in modern society. That's bad that we're at that point, but that's where we're at. So if they can sell fucking copies of Battlefield to people that have phones and say, hey, you can play it with a controller, and like
as long as you aren't worried about data caps and
exactly, yeah. And you know, ideally, if you know, if we're still talking about stable data connections and data caps 10 years from now, like it's
probably got bigger problems
over.
At that
you know,
point.
It's like whatever. It's
the bad guys won at that point.
Yeah.
I think they are.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. You know, I don't think anyone's sitting there going like, oh, fucking all the hot fucking esports players that take this shit seriously, they're going to be playing on their phone. Like, no, of course not. At least.
But just a very casual example. When we went to IHOP, and when I walked in, I saw two people playing Fortnite on their phone and one person playing PUBG on their phone in a very small restaurant. Just like, that's where we are. Like, we're there already with those games. And
right,
so you
exactly.
can imagine, you know, 5-10 years from now.
Yeah, like I don't think anyone's going like, the right way to play Fortnite's on a phone. Like, fuck no.
I don't know.
But
there's tons of kids out there who are like getting trained to play the games like this.
Yeah. Yep. And I'm sure that there are people playing on a phone that'll fucking kick my fucking ass. Give me a mouse and a keyboard and they're on a phone smoking. Like, yeah, I'm sure that that's absolutely already the case. So yeah, I don't know. I look at that stuff and feel pretty all right about where things are headed overall, but you have these stumbling blocks in the way to get there, and I think Sony's approach to this issue has become a stumbling block on the way to getting there.
Yeah.
And so I that's why I look at it and go, this will not last. This can't last, because everything is pushing in this direction. Phones to PC to PS4 with Street Fighter 5, you know, like everyone's doing it. Them to throw up this like fully arbitrary wall that is built on business and not on like actual like benefiting players. it's the opposite of the message. It's the opposite of the style and the message that they launched the PS4 with.
Totally. Now that you mention it,
you know,
it's the exact opposite of here's how you share games on the PS4.
Right. You know, like here's how you share games with your friends. You fucking don't.
Which, if anything, like Sony, if of all companies, should know how much things can change from one generation to the next.
Hey,
right?
Yeah, people have short
Like,
memories when it comes to this
top
stuff.
of the world.
And, you know, there's different people in a lot of those positions.
Sure.
You know, they've had some turnover over there.
So we got an email about this issue, which I won't read now, but kind of the crux of it is, at what point does Epic step in and you know, take issues into their own hand?
What leverage do they have, though?
I mean, they already, their hand is to put that error message on the Switch.
Yeah.
Their hand is to, whoops, we turned those servers on for a couple of days and proved to you that this all works.
And not only is it theoretically possible, the work is done already.
The work is done. They just won't let us. Like Epic has already said everything they need to say on those fronts. You know, so it's just up to players. It's just up to pressure and that sort of stuff. And if people really care about it, then I think it's an issue that Sony can be moved on over time. When it'll happen, all this other stuff, I don't know. But I just, you look at it and just go like, yeah, this doesn't feel good. This doesn't feel right. And whether that sets a precedent for suddenly all games are cross-platform or blah blah blah, like I don't know. But you know, Sony has already allowed. You know, if you think about VR headsets as being a platform, which I think is a little iffy, you know, because they have allowed PC to PS4 crossplay before, like some of those VR games, like Star Trek Bridge Crew. You know, you can play the PSVR version against people with a Rift, people with a Vive. You know, they have to bring those together just to get the install base up, you know. So, you know, Sony's willing to do business where it makes sense for them to do business. And, you know, this is kind of the final wall. But a thing that at first I think looked like they were trying to starve out the competition has instead made them look incredibly out of step with the times.
Sure.
And I think that's the thing that's happened. Whatever, it's been happening, but I think that's the spotlight. Like Fortnite is the big spotlight moment of them fucking up.
Yeah,
and we'll see what happens. I don't know.
Yeah.